Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Greg Albert. I have seen the movie Aquaman. And I'm by myself today because John is actually out of town for a while. He'll be back towards the end of this week, so you got just me today. Now, before I hop right into my review, I just wanted to tell you guys, download and follow us on the Stardust app. Over there, we do 30-second reaction reviews for any film, TV show, or you know what? I've shouted them out plenty of times. You guys know who they are. What I really want to tell you guys today is to go to Subway, get an Italian meatball sub. Here's how you're supposed to get it. You get the bread, buttery garlic on it, a bunch of mozzarella cheese, and then you toast it. Then you put the turkey meatball marinara on it, and then you get some Parmesan cheese. I like to add olive oil and vinegar. If you don't, I totally get it. But this is a limited time sub. I really hope that if enough people buy it, they keep it throughout the year. They are not paying me to say this, seriously. I just really hope that by 2019, they announce that this is an official new Subway sandwich. That's my sponsorship today. That's not paid for. Anyway, on Aquaman. Aquaman is a movie directed by James Wan. It stars Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry, and it is the story of how Aquaman learns that he is heir to the underwater kingdom Atlantis and must step forward to lead his people and become the hero he was destined to be. I'm Chris Stuckman. I know a lot of people really like this movie. A lot of people love this movie. And then I've heard some people who don't like it. Some even hate this film. But it would appear that majority of people really dig this film.
I dig it.
And for you guys who know me, I'm by no means a DC hater. I love Wonder Woman. That's what everyone's go-to answer is. But I do love Wonder Woman. And I made a whole video called Why I Love Justice League. I like Man of Steel. The other two films, and in this specific flick, there are plenty of great things. Jason Momoa as Aquaman. His charm and energy really makes for great leading man territory, and you could tell this bro loves being a part of this journey, and he is freaking cool as ice water. Oh god, I hope I don't make too many of these jokes. Seeing him in action is badass! And he gets to demonstrate this level of wit and depth that I don't recall seeing in any of his other prior body of work. Like how everyone else has already said, the visual effects in this film are astounding. I did not see this on IMAX. I already have tickets to go watch it in a few days on IMAX because that's the way it's meant to be seen apparently. But as it stands now, the effects are nothing short of incredible. Are there times that it looks super CGI that you're aware that it's CGI? Yeah, of course it does. But I'm not really gonna criticize the film for that, because for the most part, I really believe the whole world. This is like a near impossible task. And the fact that they pulled this much off, where like 80% of the movie is CGI, it's amazing. And yeah, there are awesome action scenes in this movie. It's truly at its best when there's action taking place. James Wan really knows how to do some incredible tracking shots. Whether it's exploring the numerous territories of the hidden underwater worlds, or many of its epic action scenes, there's this kinetic yet smooth approach he has to the action, which makes for truly enticing sequences. Funny enough, my favorite action scene is actually very early on with Nicole Kidman's character, Queen Atlanta. It's not the biggest one, it's not the longest one, which is what most women have told me, but it was my personal favorite action scene. And all the other action scenes that were teased in the trailer are directed wonderfully. The fights with Aquaman and Orm, the rooftop chase scene through Italy, fight scenes with Black Manta, the big climactic battle in the end. It's all great, and the whole cast is really good too. Oftentimes when you get these films that have so much green screen, actors can kind of feel rather bland in their performance, but you really felt the depth out of each performer in this movie. I liked Amber Heard as Mira, I'm not sure how you say it. They kind of seem to hop around how you say it in the movie. She gets some truly badass things to do. I really like her personality, and she's a great support for Aquaman. Do her and Jason Momoa have electrifying chemistry? No, but it was fine. It did its job. Patrick Wilson as Orm was a cool antagonist. He rode this fine line of pure villain to antagonist. You understand just because he has a different perspective, and his personality is so different from Jason Momoa's that it makes for a cool standoff. And it's through his character that you get these environmental messages, which I thought was interwoven quite nicely. It didn't feel in my face or a forced subject to give this movie more layers. It made sense for a strong motivation for why the people who live under the sea want to rise above the surface and take control. It was very understandable motivation, so interwoven nicely. For me, the character that really stole the show was actually Nicole Kidman's Queen Atlanta. She had this unspoken level of depth that I just gravitated towards, and the movie in a lot of ways feels like it's really about the journey of Queen Atlanta and Tamura, I don't know how to say it, someone correct me in the comments, Tamura Morrison as Tom Curry. The scenes showcasing how they met, their journey, are the most emotionally gripping. You got cool cool actors in here like Dolph Lundgren. He's only got a little bit of screen time, but he's effective when he's there. And Willem Dafoe has more screen time than I expected, and he's really effective when he's there. I didn't walk away feeling like any actor half-assed it just so they could get that big fat-ass comic book paycheck. Also, the score in this movie is great. It has that 80s synth-like score that you hear in a lot of movies, which does blend well with a lot of this really crazy adventure you're going on. And sometimes there's like a soundtrack choice, not the score, but a soundtrack that doesn't quite fit, but the composed music is wonderful. And a lot of this movie is just really fun cheese. Like, I don't think cheesy or corny always means bad. I think Justice League has a lot of cheese, but I love that movie. And even though the music feels very 80s-like, a lot of its action moments, especially early on, are like a 90s action movie, which is really fun to watch. You kinda got this like melodramatic acting and stuff. It's pretty funny. And sometimes the film is intentionally really funny, and sometimes those jokes don't really land, but that's usually the case with these kinds of movies, so it's not a big deal. And here's what I'll say. At the end of the day, when you watch the trailers for this film, the final product, pretty much gave me everything I wanted. It's a fantastic visual feast that truly explores even more than I expected, a fully realized world, unlike anything I've ever seen. Jason Momoa is excellent, and I'm happy he's Aquaman. The action is also very unique and super fun to watch. So because it ultimately gave me all the things I was expecting or looking for, I definitely recommend it. I'd recommend this movie alone just based off action and visuals. That right there is worth the price of admission. However, it's not to say there are things I didn't like, and those are actually very few things I don't like. If anything, there's a lot of things that I don't think are bad. I'm just sort of emotionless towards. So if anything, I'm confused on how I feel, which is why I'm gonna go watch it a second time, because sometimes when I watch a movie like this a second time, I'm more clear about how I feel. See, the funny thing about reviews on YouTube is that people take them as finite opinions. But you know what else is funny? Feelings are subject to change. For example, I liked Suicide Squad the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I didn't. And I liked Justice League the first time I saw it. The second time I watched it, I loved it. And I'll say this, the more I think about the movie, the more I gravitate towards it in a positive direction. But at the end of the day, there's no diffusing of any bomb here that I can actually do that would prevent the toxicity of fanboy and girl comments coming in. Most I can do is be honest and jump ship. So when it comes down to the question of do I love or hate this film, my answer is neither. I weirdly just feel like it's fine, and it does what I expected. The thing is, I never quite felt emotionally attached to a lot of what was happening. That's what makes me confused, because this is not by any stretch a lazy movie or a film that's void of emotion. There's so much emotion. I just personally, as a viewer, was never quite emotionally drawn to anything that was happening on screen, even though the ingredients to make an audience care were technically all there. The film covers a lot of things. How Queen Atlanta met Tom Curry, Arthur learning his unique skills and powers, Black Manta's motivation for wanting to take down Aquaman, Black Manta going after Aquaman, everything going on in Atlantis and the other underworld areas, how Arthur feels about the people of Atlantis. So many different character motivations and personal feelings on the plot, and the movie always makes the effort to give extra depth to everything that's being presented. And in the first half of the film, I was kind of worried we were doing too much, because it's kind of got this weird structure at first. This film is loaded with exposition upon exposition, a lot of plot, which is common in these kind of movies. And whenever they start explaining the history of something, which they do often, the film cuts away to show you it while talking about it. They say in films, show, don't tell, but this film does a lot of showing you and a lot of telling you simultaneously. Nothing's really left to be a mystery in this movie. They kind of just lay it all out all the time. And I guess one of my criticisms is it could have put its puzzle pieces together a little bit better. In the first half especially, because whenever it kept cutting to a new scene, it would often feel like the tone is changing. It's like every scene was really thought out, but sometimes putting those scenes back to back didn't tonally transition too well. With the scene prior, sometimes it really worked, like the change of tones, and then sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it made it more engaging, and sometimes it made it feel a little clunky. But I think the saving grace for the film is that its main goal is just to have a really fun time with the audience. So a lot of this is easy to forgive. And because of the immediacy of the giant situation at hand, you get a lot of heavy plot moving forward scenes, when the scenes that connected with me the most, the scenes that really made me feel something, were the few scenes that were just character moments. For example, before Orm and Aquaman have this ring of fire battle with their tridents, they have this exchange of dialogue about how they felt towards one another when they were kids, but it's not a giant spectacle scene, but I was gripped in that moment. There's also this very short scene where Arthur is bonding with his father at a bar, and I like that moment. It was those scenes where you're just with the characters, and I could have used a little bit more of that. Because sometimes there's character scenes that feel like, we need to throw this bit of dialogue in here, don't we? So it can feel like internal character exposition, sort of like a CW show, instead of just being with them. Because I mean, the script overall, it's generic, it's cliche, and some of it's a lot of it is very cheesy dialogue. But if you watch my reactions for the trailers, you'll know I didn't really care if it did that. Because I'll reiterate, this story wasn't lazy at all. It's decently structured. And the movie is long because there's a lot of story to cover. And they do go out of their way to tie it all up, which I really appreciate. There's no loose ends other than, intentional cliffhangers. And its script is constantly elevated by its world, its direction, its performances, it's all the technical stuff. Because yeah, the script itself isn't great. The story is better than the script, if that makes any sense. My one real hardcore issue with this script, like my real issue with it, is this whole movie keeps telling me Arthur needs to be the king of Atlantis. He needs to be the king. And yes, there's, technical rules like he's the firstborn and Orm is pretty much a dick. But the film never gave me that one scene where I go as a viewer, that's why Arthur should be king. Look at his king-like attitude and leadership or whatever, The only thing this movie gave me was a bunch of people telling me he should be king. And if that's the main end goal of it, you gotta give me something more than just telling me he has to be king. I need to feel that. And for a film that shows and tells you a lot, I'm surprised they didn't give me that one moment. And if you completely disagree with me on it, like if the movie has some strong examples as to why, in terms of internal character of why he should be king, then please leave it in the comments. My real main viewing experience overall is what I said earlier. I really wasn't emotionally gravitated towards a lot of what was happening. Because the movie goes from 0 to 100 in terms of energy very early on. So after a while, this is 2 hours and 20 minutes, after a while, the fun isn't really felt for me. It's hard to feel that 100% energy for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it's not like that energy vanished. In the last half is when that issue started becoming more apparent for me. It would sort of dip in and out of feeling the energy. Dip in and out like when he's swimming. And I think it might be because there's so much story that my heart just never had enough time to settle on anything emotionally. Like I was always just right there. I was right there about to feel, but I didn't. I could already hear the comments. You didn't have this problem with Marvel's Civil War. What about Infinity War? The thing though to keep in mind is this movie is an introduction to a world and a bunch of characters and like a very little reintroduction. Mainly this is all brand new stuff, which makes for a very different viewing experience. I'm conflicted about how I feel of what they did with Black Manta in this film. I really like that they gave time to flesh him out. I like that they gave him real motive. And you get to spend time with him. And the actor, whose name I know I'm gonna get wrong, he really gives it his all. But ultimately, in the end, for as much screen time as he got in this movie, he didn't feel entirely necessary for this specific story. He's treated as, like a setup for a future movie, which is cool. And his action scenes, don't get me wrong, are great. But another time, he's just an action scene obstacle in the way of the main journey, which is not bad. I overall enjoyed it. It just made me wonder that if they cut back on some Black Manta moments, dedicated that amount of screen time to more emotional moments towards the main story of the characters, would the emotional beats have hit home a little harder? So outside of the obvious things of Jason Momoa being great, the visuals, the action, the score, all the technical stuff, it's really the storytelling elements I'm just sort of neutral on. But these filmmakers put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making this movie. And it shows. And they did put a lot of work into their story, which is why I'm rather puzzled as to why I ultimately just ended up feeling like it's fine. In all sincerity though, seriously, I would recommend it. I think majority of people really dig this film, which is so cool to hear. I really want this film to succeed. I want audiences to love it, I want it to be a box office hit, and I want a sequel, I really do. It's very ambitious, and I imagined it was a very daunting task for the filmmakers and actors involved. I do think that once the sequel is greenlit, that James Wan should direct the sequel. And I feel like he'd be able to tell an even stronger story. Because now that he's got his feet wet, with all the technical stuff, he could put more attention into telling a more emotionally gripping tale. I imagine when you're dealing with a world like this, I imagine it's a lot of people's first time trying to bring something like this together, that there's gonna be some bumps along the way. I think with a sequel, same crew, same director, same cast, you can make something hit some even better. As for now, it's a really good part one. Everything's there, just the story elements need to hit the feels a little bit harder. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I hope people continue to love this movie. I hope it continues to kill it at the box office. I know that because I did not suck the dick of this film, I'm still gonna get a lot of crap, even though I'm recommending it. That's okay. Follow me on the Stardust app because I'm going to post my opinion of it after my second viewing. Check out my opinion on the Stardust app to see if I went from liking it to really liking it or if I like it less. Let's find out. Anyway, guys, did you see Aquaman? What did you think about it? You guys can comment below. You can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell. You can download and follow us on the Stardust app. But more importantly, go to Subway. Get that turkey Italian meatball sub immediately.